of Business Perspective for November 24, 2011. I'm your host, Jose Alpuche. Tonight we will continue our series on investment in Belize, and in particular we'll be discussing the investment climate and Beltraide's strategy and initiatives. We'll be right back.
The Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Western Union, has recently been distinguished by receiving the 5-Star Quality Service Award from Western Union.
The 5-Star Quality Service Award signifies that the Chamber holds the gold standard in outstanding customer service, in being courteous, efficient, and transparent in the services we provide.
Can you receive superior customer service at any of our chamber locations?
Yes. Come and visit us today!
Brothers Habet's amazing 28th anniversary sale. Brothers Habet has been serving Belize for 28 great years, and we're celebrating bigger than ever with a month full of great deals and savings like 30% off select Moen products, 30% off butane water heaters, 20 to 30% off Hunter fans, 20% off all windows, 20% off all power tools and shop tools, 30% off compact fluorescent bulbs, and up to 80% off clearance items in our super yard sale. And best of all, 20% off all his Pacenza tiles all month long. Too much deals for one commercial, so see store for details. Come, celebrate with us for huge pre-Christmas savings all month long. Brothers Habet's amazing 28th anniversary sale. 115 Barak Road, we're open through lunch.
Welcome back, and let me start by thanking our sponsors for tonight's show: Brothers Habet Limited, Pandora's Window Box Nursery, the Angelus Press, Idea Lab Studios, and of course the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry Western Union, the only network that has been awarded the 5-Star Quality Service Award by Western Union. Tonight's guests this evening are Mr. Michael Singh, who is an accomplished businessman and at the helm of Bitalco as its chairman and CEO, involved in logistics, tourism and other ventures. He is now a serving public officer, if I can call you that, Mike,
that's
having
correct.
served at the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation as its CEO, and you're currently the executive chairman of Beltraide.
Correct.
Our other guest is
Well, at post that I follow you on, I must say.
yeah. Our other guest is the Vice President of Services, Mr. Israel Marin, who is a well-known local investor and a businessman. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
Tonight's discussion, we hope to focus on Belize's investment climate and how we can improve on this. In particular, we wish to hear of Beltraide's role and your initiatives in this regard, Mr. Singh. I want to start, though, by putting out a little challenge. A challenge certainly not to antagonize, but to spur a debate and for you to respond. We've had several of the international organizations, those that look at, for example, in particular the business environment, the Doing Business report. Also, too, we had the competitiveness report, which ranked Belize rather low. We have the rating agencies that look at our fiscal position and our ability to service debt. And actually, Standards & Poor recently brought out their upgrade, their recent update, and it involves a downgrade of our credit rating.
Well, the downgrade of our currency rating.
Yeah, our currency
only one
rating,
particular
yes.
rating.
And the rationale behind the downgrade, they said is that the outlook, and I'll read from it, the outlook revision reflects diminishing political incentives to service Belize's external debt, a low growth and investment outlook, rising crime, public sector wage pressures, and a hard budget constraint may reduce political incentives to pay debt service. It's just a part of what is there, but it paints a strong picture, a picture that we need to find methods and mechanisms which together both government and the private sector can work to changing this outlook. Last week on the show, when we first started this series, the main thrust coming out of that discussion was the need for dialogue, but dialogue with a purpose.
Of course.
I'll throw that out and let me hear your take.
Well, Jose, first to address and in particular, I think the present one is the S&P rating, which is most recent. First of all, S&P is a rating agency that rates securities and the value of securities. And it's really more relevant if you're seeking money on a capital market, which Belize is not. So first of all, the opinion of S&P as it relates to a securities rating for Belize is not very relevant to what we are doing today. We have not raised money on the bond market since the super bond, and there's a particular reason for that. We can't. The super bond has been designed in such a way that it actually handcuffs Belize's ability to borrow on the bond market or on any private capital market. And unless that instrument is renegotiated in the foreseeable future, I don't see that changing. So, so first of all, in 2008, the government inherited that situation. So an S&P rating outlook is really only relevant to the bondholders that hold the super bond, which there is no intention by Belize to go into that market again. The second comment I have about the rating is that I find it very surprising that a rating would be given of this kind when we are now showing economic growth. I think we were at 3.1 measured for last year, and we're looking at a little bit less than that. I think it's 2.8 for this year. And in the period of 2007, 2008, which was the lowest economic situation globally, where there's a global recession, Belize was also in recession. Belize has never failed to make one payment on its foreign debt. So to make a projection when we're actually showing growth, and we're showing that we've turned the corner, that we will now have political pressures to not pay our debt, I find that very surprising. I'm not sure to what basis that comes from. And speaking to political will, I think if there's one thing our government can be criticized, is that we've tightened our belt to a point to make sure that Belize does not lose its rating in terms of where we can borrow money, which is with the international financial institutions like the IDB, the World Bank. We've now re-engaged the World Bank. We've now re-engaged a credit line with the Central American Bank for Economic Integration, CABE, for the first time. I think the World Bank has not participated in Belize for over 8 or 9 years. 10 years.
10
years,
for over 10 years. They are now back. So the relevant lending institutions where Belize can borrow are very happy with our performance. So an S&P rating, as I said, to me is not very relevant. Now, where it is relevant is for private sector investors that may consider investing in Belize. But the kind of investor that invests in Belize does not invest in instruments. They don't invest in securities. We don't have a securities market to speak of. It's direct equity. And again, in a direct equity investment scenario, those investors would be concerned about other things. They would be concerned about political risk. They may be concerned about the crime situation that was highlighted there, which is something that we do need to bring under control. They would be concerned about the safety of their investment, and I think those things, other than the crime situation, which is certainly challenging for all of us, business, government, and all of us, I think government has made it very clear that there is a respect for private investment, despite the two privatizations that happened recently, which were not done in any kind of an assertive, negative way to target any particular foreign investor, but it was done because those were public utilities that was felt that were better in the hands of
the public, and I think the public seems to have agreed with that. So outside of that, I don't think that the S&P rating has that much bearing. It's my personal opinion.
I would think that any rating that we get as a country is important. We cannot just blow it off like that. And it's amazing that this came off. Maybe I think the Prime Minister's speech in his quarterly report.
Yes.
He made a comment there with concerning the IMF Article 4 consultation.
Yes.
Kind of like blowing it off, saying, well, you know, that is their review, but we're running our show, and we need to do what we have to do. If it means that we're going to run a deficit, then we'll run a deficit. And we're part of a global picture.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, when S&P goes out, it's not only rating Belize, it's rating Europe, all the other countries. So I guess we're not doing that bad in this kind of rating
Not
with
really,
the
no.
environment here. And whilst we do have some GDP growth, I don't think that I on this side, as an investor, like to look at other things like crime, unemployment, the number of new businesses that are opening, the number of businesses that are closing, as economic indicators rather than GDP. Because what I've seen with the GDP number is that whenever you have an expenditure in there that's an extraordinary expenditure, for example, I think the census, we spent $4 or $5 million doing a census, that affected GDP by 1.2%. So we're not going to have a census next year. That means that that money is not going to be spent anymore. So it's the numbers that we're doing with 3.1 or 2.8 are not really reflective of the growth that we're looking at. Well, I'd like to use different economic indicators. Whilst this is a traditional way of saying, yes, we're turning the corner, and yes, we're having some sort of growth, these numbers, to me, are not the real indicators of if we turn the corner or not.
But your point is that there is an element of it that is one-time public spending, and it's not necessarily economic activity in the
I
private
think what happened is that we use the GDP number as an indicator to see if we're really turning the corner. And I'd like to think that sometimes if you take out the expenditures, the extraordinary expenditures, the public sector expenditures that cause some of this growth, if you take it out, then you will see that you're not really having that kind of growth in the economy. I'd like to use, like I said, different indicators. How much employment created, how many businesses closed down. To me, those are more indicative
but those
those
indicators, though, are not indicators that government has control over very much. I mean, government has control over what it spends. Government has control over being able to make adjustments to the monetary policy, being able to make adjustments to the fiscal policy of government. Government has control over perhaps setting policy for a financial environment with interest rates. And if you look at it, where have we come? Interest rates have fallen because, again, government has changed some of the rules that it allows the banks to operate under, which has driven down those interest rates.
But has it fallen enough? Those are the things that...
Well, but that's not a government issue. No, perhaps government needs to step in a bit more and maybe start talking about the spread.
That's what I was coming at with here. For example, if there was a 2.8% growth because of monetary policy, that would have been turning the corner. But if there was a 2.8% growth in public spending due to having the BDF out on the street or fighting crime or doing a census, those are not long-term investments in saying the economy is going to be going.
It's not totally reflective of economic expansion.
Right.
It's a fiscal.
But I guess the point I'm making, though, is that that's the only measure that government can go on.
That's the only measure that we have.
That we have. And again, if you look at what government has done, you know, I was pulling up some numbers while I was sitting here on the private sector investment program, for instance. Right now, currently, we have $412.4 million in public sector investment projects that are ongoing within the time frame that this government has started and that are still ongoing now. And of that, $252.2 million is in infrastructure. Now, if there's any investment that spurs economic growth, it's infrastructure. And on top of that, you know, you've got investment in education, which is the largest investment. I believe next year we're projecting that our education budget will be $200 million, the highest it's ever been. Okay. Those are the kinds of investments that government can do.
Well, we need investment with results, because the budget for education, for example, over the past 10 years has doubled, but then the results that we're getting out of the primary PSC and the other ones have decreased. So is it that we just double budgets and throw money, good money after these areas that we say we need, or do we go for results?
That's a valid point, but I want to come to that a little bit later.
Okay.
You've outlined the public sector investment program. What about the work that's being done within the private sector? Because as executive chairman of Beltraide, you are not de facto, you're the de jure appointment on investment and attempting to jumpstart.
Well, Jose, the one thing that I found when I got to Beltraide, which has been started in February, what I found is that strategic planning was not necessarily there. There was a lot of reactiveness, where you're waiting for somebody to come in with a project, and we did not kind of set a strategy as to where we saw Belize's competitive advantage and put our dollars on marketing investments and marketing trade in those areas. So the first thing we did is we decided to look at sectors, and we looked at 4 broad areas. And those four broad areas, clearly, we know tourism and leisure is the #1 foreign exchange earner. So that in a basket by itself is one of the areas. So we're putting a lot of effort into that area. We're looking at agriculture, aquaculture, light manufacturing, and anything having to do with the kind of productivity that leads to export of commodities or export of production. And we've included light manufacturing with that, because the only light manufacturing to speak of that we have is light manufacturing for agro-processing or for perhaps furniture making, very cottage industries. There's nothing really, there's no heavy industry. So we put light industry as a part of that bundle. We're also looking at things like mining, extractive industries, and energy as a sector that could really use promotion. And a good example is BEL, now that it's in government control, is looking at a strategic plan to expand production and to really focus using government efforts on linking in with the Central American grid, the SICA grid, which will help us to actually become a net exporter of power if we can produce enough locally. And there's so much scope for that. There's scope for renewable energy, either by increasing the hydro production, looking at solar, looking at wind energy, looking at biomass. All those areas are areas that we've been looking at and trying to find real investment in those areas. And the last area, which to me is an area that we've overlooked for too long, is the area of business process outsourcing. That area really is to let's harness the power that Belize has as an English-speaking nation, that Belize has with a young population. Our population is mostly under 30. And the idea that we're also more culturally linked to English-speaking North American markets, which allows us to fit very easily into a customer service, a support service.
The time zone is also...
Yes, and the time zone,
yeah.
yes.
Explain to those that might not know it, what BPO means.
Well, call center is a part of the BPO, and I don't want to focus too heavily on call centers, because I don't want Beltraide to be known as a call center institute, but we do see this as a means for immediate mass employment. And one of the things that we clearly recognize is that if we don't do something about employment today, it'll bite us later on. And there's a lot of young people that are employable. There's a lot of them that are going to become unemployable if we don't do something about it right away. On Monday, we graduated the first 66 graduates in a training program sponsored by Beltraide and the Ministry of Education. And it was interesting that the employers that attended that session were prepared to hire all those people right on the spot. So I think we're onto something here where we can get mass numbers of young people. We can get them trained in basic customer service, phone skills, customer service skills, and anything that has to do with being able to support a product or service for another market. And there's several companies looking now to expand, which will pick up and hire a lot of those people.
Okay, with that thought, we must go to a break. We'll be right back.
This season, say happy holidays to your customers the personal way. Get your personalized corporate holiday greeting cards now at Idea Lab Studios, and we'll give you the design at 50% off with orders of 500 or more. Get your 2012 calendars ready too with custom desk, wall, and pocket calendars. Idea Lab Studios, where ideas take shape. Call us today at 223-6386 or visit our website at www.idealabstudios.com.
So why should you shop at CGI? Because they have it all. At CGI, they offer every promotional product you can dream of. T-shirts, pens, key holders, mugs, signs, full color banners, dickies, trophies and awards, jerseys, rubber stamps, embroidery, and so much more. When they say everything, they mean everything. All printed in their facility in Orange Walk with the highest quality at the best prices using state-of-the-art equipment. At CGI, they want you to have the best shopping experience possible. They are the promotional product powerhouse you need to get the job done. CGI looks forward to serving you. Call 322-2282 or 422-0151. CGI, products that promote.
Introducing eZone Belize, the fastest, most reliable way to ship internet purchases and just about anything to Belize. It's easy, affordable, and fast. We provide you with a personal U.S. address and ship twice a week direct to Belize for as low as $1.55 U.S. Ship it safely and reliably with eZone Belize. Call us at 322-2283 for details and start shipping today, or visit our website at getezone.com.
Welcome back. And Mike, picking up from where you were speaking of some investment happening. Now, we discussed the S&P report. The other two reports, the doing business and the competitiveness report, pointed to issues as it relates to the environment. I think we should mention that a lot of what is discussed in those reports as it relates to the business environment is not necessarily in the purview of Beltraide. They're much bigger than Beltraide, and we're speaking about government as a whole.
Well, this Belize as a whole.
Yeah, Belize as a whole.
I think government has a part of it. Has a part of it, but there's a lot of private sector work to be done to improve competitive within the private sector itself.
What's on the agenda as it relates to that? Because I do believe that is one of the it's more medium to long term issues. These are issues that have not just cropped up overnight. They've been accumulating for a while. Well, how are we going to first and foremost literally itemize them and decide what is priority and move on them?
Well, as a start, the public sector private sector dialogue has started. The Prime Minister's Forum really is the first step in that direction, to reach out to the private sector and to actually have dialogue. And leading up to that forum, we've had many interactions with private sector groups. We started with small groups of maybe 4 or 5 prominent business people, and the largest one we had was an interaction with about 25 people from leaders of all the productive sectors and retail sectors, banking, etc. And the same thing came true over and over. You know, the areas that they felt needed to be improved so that business climate can improve. The top area was really taxation. And when I say taxation, I'm talking not only business tax, but also looking at how GST is administered, how evenly it's enforced. We look at issues like customs. We looked at issues like how do we just general payment for services with government offices. How do we streamline those issues? And there's a lot of work being done. The GST department has been restructured. They've actually put in place over the past 6 to 8 months a compliance unit that is getting more and more active. And they're working on ideas like, for instance, networking cash registers, using fiscal cash register systems, and using some kind of a lottery system to ensure compliance. I think you've seen on television lately more and more ads about GST compliance, because it's something that the department has been cracking down on and has been really been looking at, okay, how do we make sure everybody pays? In terms of customs, the Asecuda system is being implemented. There's a delay in the implementation, but quite a bit of it has been done. I believe the western border and the northern, and the airport's already online.
Yeah,
it's already online.
The western border and the northern border.
Yeah, western and northern border are the only two that aren't online yet. And there still is to implement the proper inspection system, because it all has to go hand in hand. Once all that's in place, then I think the human element that leads to the corruption will be removed from the system, where the ASECUDA will manage the processes in a non-human way, and the inspection will be more random, which I think would take out a lot of that. And I believe that there is, in terms of tax reform, once we've achieved that kind of transparency, means that we can then clearly look at, okay, do we want to maybe start getting rid of import duties completely, and maybe looking at an adjustment on the GST so it becomes a consumption tax, which is easier to administer and perhaps more progressive as opposed to restrictive. So all those things are in motion, and the Prime Minister spoke about it at the forum. So I think it's something that I think the business community has to look forward to. In terms of the general climate, and I've looked at the same statistics you've looked at, in competitiveness, I think what needs to happen is that we need to broaden our private sector base and encourage the proliferation of more small businesses. I believe that competition tends to be clumped in small, tight groups, and often we tend to be protective. And I mean, coming from the business community, one can understand that in a small market you want to manage your competition, and so you tend to take
it's in your business.
Yeah. Market share tends to be dominant about everything that you do, and often we use many tactics to control market share that I don't think we should. But I think somehow small businesses need to be empowered, particularly young, innovative ideas that are coming forth, to be encouraged to come forward and help them to build so that they can create new economies within the economy. You know, there's so many areas we can create new economies. In technology, I talked about business process outsourcing. That industry comes with a whole tail of services that can be tagged onto it that could be encouraged. You know, things like computer repair, things like programming. You've got. I talked about renewable energy, solar systems. We haven't touched the surface. I go to Barbados all the time, and I'm amazed driving around looking at every roof has a solar water heater on top.
In Belize, none.
In Belize, none. Why is that? Why is there not small companies coming up saying, look, we will go to a household and show you that we can save you money by installing a solar water heater and maybe financing it through a bank? You know, those are some of the areas of innovation that we need to encourage.
It was a government-inspired program, which had
it has to have incentives, really.
Yes, of course,
from the government. But you know, the point of small business raises, and I continue to use it as one of the prime examples, as it relates to the productive sector in Belize. And we look at the EPC legislation, where large companies are able to operate in a virtually almost tax-free environment, and producing for export. So in effect, we're subsidizing the foreign plate of food, while those that are producing for domestic consumption are usually not, well, they're not able to benefit from this sort of a regime.
Economies of scale.
And what I'm getting at is that we need, the correction that you spoke about in the existing tax structure is one thing, but to a certain extent, we need a rethink of the macro picture to provide a level playing field, so that both your large as well as your domestic, your large for export and your small for domestic production are treated in a similar fashion.
Correct, and we just engaged a new project, which is the new SME policy project, which is falling under Beltraide. And some of the areas that we see that need improvement, number one, is we need to develop some kind of an incubation system for small businesses to teach them the basics. Because we're talking about getting small business export ready. I think we're actually putting the cart before the horse. We have to get them business ready. And one of the areas that we're looking at, there's a model adopted by the US called the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers. And we've received some funding for us to explore looking at developing those centers in Belize, along with the University of Belize and possibly the Centers for Employment Training and IT Vets, so we can actually help businesses to have a place to go to teach them the basics. You know, how do you do your accounting? How do you build a marketing plan? How do you even write a business plan? How do you make yourself ready for the bank to even look at you to lend you money? Okay, those are some of the basics that come even before we talk about exporting. In terms of Beltraide and what Beltraide sees is that as part of the SME policy, we have to come up with an SME legislation that actually tells us exactly how do we classify a small business and how do we give those incentives to that small business. And not just fiscal incentives, but incentives for training, incentives for excellence, incentives for the kind of innovation and investment in the areas that we want to see happen. So that new SME policy should lead to a legislation, and the next step from that is for us to look at our own SME fiscal incentives policy and tweaking it so that it is relevant. Right now it's very inexpensive for an SME to apply for a fiscal incentives, but very few of them go through the trouble because it means you have to do a business plan. Okay, well, I don't know how to do a business plan. I have to pay somebody to do that. So a lot of it gets bypassed because of that.
And I believe in that. We've discussed this off air before, but a key point in that too is developing linkages among the pertinent government agencies.
Yes.
Because there's a tremendous break in collaboration at the governmental level, which is something that you really can't legislate very easily.
Correct.
But it's something that absolutely needs to be promoted. For example, you have a linkage with your development bank, with DFC. You look at assisting them in putting together a business plan. You refer them to DFC for financing. They come back to you for a fiscal incentive program.
Well, we've been experimenting with that a little bit, Jose, and like I said, I really think we need to formalize the SBDC model, because we've been experimenting it with our internal what's called the business facilitation unit, and the companies that have come in and asked us for help that need the kind of help we talk about. Frankly, I find it more difficult for us to get information from them than it is for us to be able to have the talent to put together the business plan. So a lot of times you have entrepreneurs that will come in, like I have a good example. There's one gentleman that's doing a water business, and he was doing very well at his water business, selling water ideals. And he didn't go much further than when his machine broke on him, and the whole business just shut down because he never did the kind of planning to decide how he was going to scale.
Right.
And so we're trying to work with him to build a business plan, and it's like getting the information is, man, it takes like 2, 3, 4 months just to sit down and to do a projection as to how many sales you think you're going to have. The basic things that you and I take for granted. So it is very important.
It's a lot of hand-holding.
A lot of hand-holding, and as my good friend Sandra Bertrand told me, she said hand-holding money is expensive. Yeah. She said the bank is willing to lend money to small and medium enterprises, but the amount of time you spend holding their hand to get them to where they can make money, it costs too much money. So there has to be a middle institution. Not all of us, Pi, in your business, you know exactly where you're going to go. You do a budget every year. You have a projection. You have sales numbers. You know what your salespeople are going to bring in. A small person starting out it's a one-man show, and he barely has the time to turn on his computer to perhaps file his GST, much less sit there and think about doing a business plan.
Well, changing it a little bit, Jose, I'd like to maybe take the discussion a little bit to the existing businesses in Belize. Because once we're talking about Beltraide and developing new businesses or incentives for new small businesses or even foreign direct investment, what I see on the ground really is there's a lot of suffering with the established businesses. If it's not foreclosure, it's cutting down staff, it's downsizing, and the amount of bad debts incurred at the bank is really and truly coming from businesses not making or not having the ability to keep up with the economic downturn, or not handling it well.
We're dealing with a global phenomenon, and again, I remember in 2006, maybe 2005, when the real estate boom was in its height. You had condos flying off the shelf in San Pedro. Everybody was building materials was flying, plumbers, electricians, all those people were getting work. Placencia. Today, and I'm very closely linked to the real estate industry, and what's happening now is that the building kind of sales is not happening anymore. The only sales happening on real estate is land sales, and what it is, it's what I tend to call land banking. And Guatemalans are doing it now in Belize. What they're finding is that Belize land is fairly inexpensive. It's got this health value.
It's a deal right now. So
yeah, it's a deal. So right now people are buying land. Nobody's buying condominiums.
No, and the deposit rate at the banks have gone down to 2.5, so it's easier for you to invest
precisely
in property.
Yeah, exactly. So people are putting their money, holding it in real estate, but not in productive real estate.
Right.
No. The challenge we have is how do you convince people to take that real estate and make it productive? Farmland. The food commodities are at an all-time high. I heard on 2 cent scam this morning. There was the question is, can you get sugar? And the answer for some people is like, well, no, not always, not always. It means that there's a scarcity worldwide for sugar. The price is up. Okay, we need more people growing sugar. You know, you look at other areas. Citrus, the price is higher than it's ever been, $12 a box. Okay, there should be more people growing citrus. I tried to buy citrus trees. I can't find seedlings in Belize. There's nobody selling seedlings. Okay, these are the opportunities that I think that that as traditional businesses, that may say that things are really, really bad, the banks are saying, look, I have a lot of liquidity. Bring me a good project. So I think there's a need for diversification that has to come out from the minds of traditional business people to start looking at where the trends are going. It's not building materials for condos anymore, so maybe you need to back off that. It's not. It might not be air conditioning equipment. It might be something that now has a market.
And yeah, and the businessmen are doing that. So, for example, one of my new points here, for example, I looked at the trade licenses and property taxes in Belize City. And I seen, for example, in my business, it almost doubled over the past 3 years. But what I've seen, a big growth, for example, in Ladeville. So when I figured out why, is because the property tax and the trade license is not as exorbitant there. Exactly. So what you're finding out is that there is a big explosion in Ladeville when it comes to supermarkets and the other kind of business.
Correct. I think you raised an important point there, by that it's not only the big ticket taxation that we need to look at, but we also need to look at what at one point were considered nuisance taxes, which are now cumulative and are costing businesses quite a bit. And a lot of them have to do with this move to have government more revenue oriented. But we must go to a break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Zaina, and my life moves fast. I need an internet mobile solution that's fast, affordable, and easy to access. Thank goodness for Smart Smooth 3G portable internet modem. Check this out. Now I can get mobile broadband at fast speed. I can download my emails, update my status. All I need is this little USB modem. So go ahead, sign up for Smart's 3G mobile internet modem today and get moving while staying connected to the fastest 3G network in Belize.
Smart, bringing people together.
The Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Western Union, has recently been distinguished by receiving the 5-Star Quality Service Award from Western Union.
The 5-Star Quality Service Award signifies that the Chamber holds the gold standard in outstanding customer service, in being courteous, efficient, and transparent in the services we provide.
Can you receive superior customer service at any of our Chamber locations?
Yes. Come and visit us today!
This season, say happy holidays to your customers the personal way. Get your personalized corporate holiday greeting cards now at Idea Lab Studios, and we'll give you the design at 50% off with orders of 500 or more. Get your 2012 calendars ready too with custom desk, wall, and pocket calendars. Idea Lab Studios, where ideas take shape. Call us today at 223-6386 or visit our website at www.idealabstudios.com.
Welcome back. This is our final discussion segment. Let me say that we would want to invite your comments to both the topic that we've been discussing and the contents of the discussion tonight. Please send us an email at businessperspective@belize.org, or you can post a comment on the Chamber's Facebook page, or better yet, for our members, you can use the virtual meeting place that is part of the Chamber's website portal. And on that site, we intend to have a dialogue. So please send us your comments. Mike, you were talking about, during the break, about expanding the base, both the base in terms of production here, but looking at the at the prospects beyond Belize?
Well, Jose, again, I've been traveling quite a bit regionally in the Caribbean and Central America, and we're in an enviable position, first of all. You know, we always keep repeating that Belize is the bridge between the Caribbean and Latin America, and we really are. We've just never taken advantage of it. And I think, you know, every time I go to Barbados, I go to Trinidad, Jamaica, the companies that you meet are always looking, what does Belize have that we can do a market in? How can we invest? How can we look at perhaps exporting not only our goods, but also our services, our consultancies? We have a lot of very smart people in Belize. I mean, I know you do consultancies outside Belize. You know, Pi, I know you've invested in other countries. How do we encourage our business people to say that, look, we have a talent and we have services and we have know-how, we have patents, we have dealerships, we have the ability to market. All these things are intrinsic values that we can export into a market that we actually have duty-free access into. But we tend to keep focusing our efforts on this small 350,000 person market, which will not feed the kind of scope that we're starting to build. So you know, we're getting ready right now to negotiate a partial scope agreement with Mexico. We're now working on the terms, and what I would like to see is that our business community get involved with government. So when we go to the negotiating table, to near markets, and I'm not talking about the EPA. The EPA I thought was fantastic, but it's not very easy for us to develop a European market or a Canadian market, or even a U.S. market for that respect. But a Mexican market is right next door. We can drive across the border. Guatemalan market is next door. Caribbean market is fairly close. You know, we have direct ship service going into Jamaica. Why don't we start spending the time looking perhaps looking at a 5 million person market, or a 10 million person market, or an 80 million person market in Mexico? You know, those are the areas that if we can strategically develop our abilities and our structures, and we are in a position that we can actually negotiate preferential access for ourselves, particularly with Mexico, because they understand that they look at us as a little brother and they will give us the kind of access that we need.
Well, I'm glad you raised that point, because I think it's one of the key areas where in the past the Chamber and government participated very, very strongly, in particular in negotiating the partial scope agreement with Guatemala. It was this Chamber linkages program and the work within the foreign trade at that point in time, that together with direct participation of the private sector negotiated that trade agreement. And I'm sure that there would be a lot of support for that initiative into Mexico. We've been trying with cattle, and we're still trying with cattle. We're very encouraged by the support from Beltraide.
I think we're close.
So we need to develop those sorts of linkages. Mexico is one, Salvador is another one, especially for some of the basic grains.
But I think the next step is not just participate in the negotiation, but also disseminating to the general public.
Right.
You know, I think that's where we fail. You know, you might have, like, for instance, in cattle, the Cattle Association is very engaged in what we're doing right now with that corral project in Blue Creek and the cattle sweep. But outside of that, not too many people know about what's going on. There are opportunities for everyone in our regional negotiations, and it shouldn't only be led by just a particular industry with their advocates and the government department, but it should be something that we can start looking and saying, you know, if it's not only about what you're producing, it's all about your intellectual property, it's about your talents, it's about your license as an attorney. I mean, there's no reason why attorneys would not look at perhaps opening law firms in Caribbean jurisdictions,
but
or partnering.
You've been blazing trails in some of this too, no?
Yeah, well, for example, I've looked at other markets and seen opportunities. But to me, for example, Belize itself is an opportunity. A lot of people think that for export, you have to actually send a product out there. We can actually create a product here and have people come and consume it here.
Correct.
So, for example, that's the focus that I would like to see Belize in. Here we have Guatemala with 14 million people, and we have Mexico with almost 80 and 90 million people. Why is it that we go to these jurisdictions and spend our money? When I looked at the numbers, I think we're spending $250 million a year in Melchor and Chetumal, building their economy. And government, for example, is missing out on revenues, maybe $40–50 million in revenues that it's not getting into the purse. So I would think that if we would turn that around and have the Mexicans and the Guatemalans coming into our jurisdiction and spending that money, then we can turn it around. And we can only do it by being lowering the rates of import duty, having access to the commodities here, and do the consumption tax. Because when we go and purchase something in
paying their
Chetumal,
consumption tax?
we're paying their IVA. We might be getting the NAFTA 2% pricing because of the NAFTA agreements that Mexico has with the U.S., but we're paying their IVAs, and that is a direct tax that we're paying to the Mexican economy.
Precisely.
Or to, I think Guatemala might be 10%, but we are contributing to the building of their economy.
Plus the profits that the businessmen earn. So we're
Exactly.
taking our money and exporting it.
So what we need is to reverse that. We need for them to be in here consuming. And that to me is the true export package that we have. It's not exporting physically out, but having the consumers come and using our products and services here in this jurisdiction.
Well, in particular, like a good opportunity for that pie is on the northern border. As part of this investment project, we're investing $12 million in improving the entire northern border area. The new bridge will open. We're actually landscaping it really nice with roundabouts and proper roadway access. But there's so much land on that border that could be developed into additional retail. It could be. Well, you have to start someplace, though.
Yeah, when I meet people in Mexico and say, "Have you ever been to Belize?" They say, "Yeah."
To the free zone, yeah.
Free zone. That to them is Belize.
Yeah.
So we're spending all this money to actually we're limiting to what the free zone is, 50 acres, 100 acres, I don't know.
Okay.
And here we have the opportunity to develop an entire country
and get more consumption from those people.
Yeah, and when they come in, it's not only to buy goods and services, to stay, overnight stays, use our hotels, our facilities. That's the kind of thing that we do when we go to Cancun or Playa or even Chetumal. So why we need to reverse that,
and that's the kind of tax study we need to do. We need
that to me is key.
But I recall you've brought up something that we had discussed with the Mexicans, and actually in the presence of PM in the past, as it relates to some of the border fees for Mexicans coming into Belize.
It was waived. I think we pushed for it to be waived.
And the PM
Mexicans had to pay an exit tax if they came into the country, whilst we are welcome there and don't pay the exit tax until I think after 3 days.
Right.
So simple incentives that we have incentives that we have in place are causing.
And it's that sort of thing to a large extent that I think can make the environment so much more attractive. I can't recall what the fee was, but I recall in the calculation that the fellow had done in presenting the issue was that by the time I bring my family from Mexico into Belize, I have to pay over 100 US in just border fees.
Exit taxes.
Which you're not consuming anything.
Exactly, which immediately means I'm not
per day. I mean, if they only came to spend 1 day. So I think we got to change to 3 days or something like that.
And I think there's a tremendous amount of those what are, at the end of the day, effective barriers.
Well, cross-border tourism could be huge. There's so many cross-border things. Like I said, we are next to these big markets. And, you know, I was in Jamaica at a forum the other day, and one of the things I was talking to the Minister of Commerce for Jamaica, and the thing he said to me, he says, man, you know, if Belize was full of the Jamaican attitudes that we have here in Belize with the markets you have, see how much money we'd be making?
Yeah.
And it's right. It has a lot to do with perhaps, as you said, the small taxes, the nuisance taxes, as you call them. But I think if there's enough people making a demand that we want to get into this market, this is what we need. Government will have to respond.
I think the jurisdiction is being run like if we're an island state.
Yes, exactly.
So it was a copy of Trinidad and Jamaica and these island states when we're not an island state. We're here stuck in the middle of big markets, and we cannot take an opportunity of that because the tax system that we have in place is not giving us that opportunity.
Yeah, we keep running ourselves like an island, and
and that would give us the ability to local investors to be part of that team. Here we are looking at foreign direct investment. I think local investment is the people would be very comfortable in doing the investments there if the legislations, if the taxation, if the long-term view is saying we will convert Belize into this mecca for everyone to come in and consume and have fun and be that kind of environment. Whilst here, I mean, I've seen tourists come into the airport for vacation and having to pay $50 and $100 in duty and stuff that they're bringing for. I mean, that's not encouraging tourism. That's not it. So these are the simple little things that we see, but affect at the end of the day the big picture.
St. Martin is a good example. They're an island. They're completely tax-free. And the whole Caribbean goes to shop in St. Martin.
Exactly.
So
we have the ability to do that. but it has to be private sector, public sector coming to say, this is part of where we want to go. Tourism will be joining to that. Again, food consumption, value added in food. We can't have 3 million people coming into this country or 4 million people consuming the stuff that we are producing. We don't have to export it. They will come here and consume it. So that is the advantages that I see we have and we need to work towards.
The practical steps of getting there, we've thrown around a few ideas, but the practical step of getting there, you're doing your strategic review at the moment, looking at the strategy.
Well, the main. I think it has to be a confluence of steps. You know, there has to be a review of the whole tax system and how government itself earns and uses revenue. Use is one thing, but you can't use what you don't earn. So I, from a business standpoint, and I know you probably do the same thing, is that your focus typically tends to be on revenue. And although you do cost controls, if you don't have revenue, there's nothing to control.
Well, if I cut anything more, I wouldn't have revenue.
Thank you. Exactly. So I think at this point, government has to look at how it earns taxes and how efficiently it collects those taxes, and of course how well it uses it. But also, in reality, the effort you're putting, for instance, in collecting customs duties, compared GST. You're probably putting, if you look at the size of the GST department and the size of the customs department, there's a big disparity there. And you look at the amount of tax collected, it's not in ratio. So that alone tells you that perhaps we need to look at how we do that. The small nuisance taxes, somehow somebody needs to put all these little cells within government and stop having everybody treat their own little cell as its own revenue stream. And something that happened in the past, which is the creation of a lot of statutory bodies, has actually led to this. You know, the Belize Tourist Board is its own tax regime. Board of Management is its own tax regime. Baja is its own tax regime.
Exactly, the municipal bodies.
Yes, that seemed like a good idea at the time, but now what we're facing now is that all these little tax regimes have had to put sustainability plans to make sure they collect enough money to run their operation, and when they need more money, you know, we just raise the fees. So then a visitor, a business person, a consumer, everybody ends up with all these little nickel and dime taxes all over the place instead of having it all centralized.
I keep on saying we're the size of a very small town in the U.S.
And we're trying to run it like we're a big country.
We have an administration that could probably run a huge country.
Yeah, agreed.
And we simply can't afford it.
Agreed. And those are the efficiencies. And again, you know, I encourage the chamber, and I really think that if we can work together in a partnership where we can sit and talk about these things in a manner to say, look, let us work together on a strategic plan. Not in isolation, not that I'm going to bring a plan and hand it to you, government, and expect you're going to swallow it. But it has to be a partnership. The Horizon 2030 plan is a good global guideline for where we need to go. The medium-term development strategy, it's a good document, but I don't think it had enough private sector involvement. So at some point in time, I think government needs to embark, and the private sector, and say, look, let's get together and do this thing. I think the time is now.
But that's why we have you here tonight, for you to commit to begin this substantive process, because it's something that will not be done very easily. It's something that would take some time, but I believe it's something that's absolutely necessary, because there has to be a oneness with government and the private sector as to where we want to go and how best we can agree that this is how we're going to get there.
Well, I have extended myself on many occasions, and I stand ready, and Payu, we've known each other for a long time, and the one thing I will do, if you notice, I came with my sleeves rolled up, because that's the way I always operate. I don't put my sleeves down anymore.
Okay, on that note, we go to our final break, and we'll be right back.
This season, say happy holidays to your customers the personal way. Get your personalized corporate holiday greeting cards now at Idea Lab Studios, and we'll give you the design at 50% off with orders of 500 or more. Get your 2012 calendars ready too, with custom desk, wall, and pocket calendars. Idea Lab Studios, where ideas take shape. Call us today at 223-6386 or visit our website at www.idealabstudios.com.
Brothers Habet's amazing 28th anniversary sale. Brothers Habet has been serving Belize for 28 great years, and we're celebrating bigger than ever with a month full of great deals and savings like 30% off select Moen products, 30% off butane water heaters, 20 to 30% off Hunter fans, 20% off all windows, 20% off all power tools and shop tools, 30% off compact fluorescent bulbs, and up to 80% off clearance items in our super yard sale. And best of all, 20% off all his Pacenza tiles all month long. Too much deals for one commercial, so see store for details. Come, celebrate with us for huge pre-Christmas savings all month long. Brothers Habet's amazing 28th anniversary sale, 115 Barak Road, we're open through lunch.
The Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Western Union, has recently been distinguished by receiving the 5-Star Quality Service Award from Western Union.
The 5-Star Quality Service Award signifies that the Chamber holds the gold standard in outstanding customer service, in being courteous, efficient, and transparent in the services we provide.
Can you receive superior customer service at any of our Chamber locations?
Yes. Come and visit us today!
Welcome back to our wrap-up session. Let me quickly remind viewers, please send your comments to businessperspective@belize.org, or post a comment on our Facebook page, or for members, visit our virtual meeting place on the Chamber's website, www.belize.org/VMP. Mike, this is a quick one, and this is where you'll show your private sector efficiency by giving us some few short words.
Or my political ability, right? I'm not sure which one. I believe that government over the last 3.5 years has faced a lot of challenges. I mean, global recession, the kind of economy that we inherited. But I do believe we've turned the corner. And as you said, the macro numbers probably do not speak everything, but there's going to be a while before business catches up to that. And I just hope that there's not another double-dip recession from the U.S. looming around the corner. So we have to really look out for that. But I think that the time is right, that government has done a lot that it needs to do. I think there's a lot of programs that are in place. They need to be tweaked, and they need partnership with the private sector. It can't be just by itself. Or pro-poor agenda, which kind of seem to take center stage, is really not bad for the economy. It's actually good for the economy. It's zero rating goods. That means that more goods will be sold. Poor people don't save. So you put money in the hands of poor people, it actually goes directly into the economy. So I think the time has come now for us to move that up a notch, and let's make it a pro-business policy. And I think government's ready for that. I think the worst seems to be over. And at this point, it's really important for us to engage everybody, the financial institutions, to make sure that liquidity gets put to work. Make sure the interest rates are valid. Telecommunications, we're already starting to see some improvements in cost in that area. More efficiency perhaps in transportation and logistics. Those are the areas that I think government can listen to the private sector and put our own inputs in there. But I won't take up your full 2 minutes, so I'll give Pi some time.
Well, I believe that definitely the economy for the long haul, it has to be private sector led. Whilst government spending does assist the economy in the short term, it has to be private sector led, and government policy has to be one working hand in hand with private sector to get this long-term growth in the economy. The Belize Chamber of Commerce and its members have always advocated for that kind of thing. So whilst we have sometimes different views of government in certain policies, the overall picture about working together, both public and private sector, for the betterment of Belize and to have the long-term growth is always there. And we need to always have that communication open, and we work together, because the ratings that we're getting there is not government gets the rating, it's Belize gets the rating. And only private sector can turn that around, and only working along with the public sector we can get that done. So we're not working in isolation, and we should not work in isolation. We should work together, because this is where we're working for the same thing. But while it's one is saying we can do it better, on the short term, I think it has to be jointly.
Thank you, Pai. To actually end on that very same theme, I believe that we've weathered the economic storm fairly well, simply because our economy is fairly diversified, albeit small but very diversified, and we've been able to spread risks and come out on top. We absolutely need to keep it that way, keep it diversified within the private sector, but also too in close collaboration with government. We're in this boat together, and we've got to either sink or better yet, swim together. Have a good night.
Thank you.